guys, what's up? It's Layla and I hope you guys are healing in whatever way you need. So I just want to start by saying happy Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I know it's the last day of May, but it's never too late to, acknowledge the representation of POCs, So as a way to celebrate and acknowledge Asian and Pacific Islander heritage, this video is going to be dedicated to giving a list of book recommendations by Asian authors that feature Asian protagonists, where they are not just telling stories about, oppression and struggling, but it's just stories that represent and cover the different perspectives of these individuals. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So the first book I have here is American Panda by Gloria Chao, and it's about this girl named May who got accepted into MIT and she's on track to becoming a successful doctor, and her parents have these or mainly her mom, she has this really high expectation of her becoming a successful doctor and finding a good Taiwanese boy to marry and start a family with. However, May does not really like biology at all. She falls asleep in class and she hates germs, so it's kind of difficult to become a really good doctor if you don't like those things, While she's at MIT, she also meets a boy who is not Taiwanese and she falls for him, so there's that. So overall, this book is basically about May trying to be true to herself while also making sure she doesn't disappoint her mom. So she kind of keeps the fact that she doesn't like biology and the fact that she's dating this boy who's not Taiwanese a secret from her, so yeah. So my second recommendation is The Beauty of the Moment by Tanaka's Bhathena, and it's about this girl named Susan Thomas who is Arab and she moves from Saudi Arabia to Canada with her parents. So similar to May from American Panda, Susan is set to be on track to be either a doctor or an engineer. However, she secretly has a passion for art. There's also an element of romance in this book when Susan meets this boy named Malcolm, who was the opposite of her when it comes to knowing what he wants to do with his life, because she's very straightforward and she knows what she wants, but Malcolm has no clue what he wants to do in his future and he doesn't really have a set plan, so it's kind of clashy there. But once they meet, they get to know each other a little bit more and realize that they actually have some similarities that they didn't know that they had there. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this book, and I think it represents pretty well how that it's not super easy to live up to your parents' expectations while also living up to what's true for you. Because yeah, it would be easier to just do what your parents want, but you're not really happy if you do that, so. Okay, so the next two books I have here are by the same author, Kwan, and it's China Rich Asian, or Crazy Rich Asians and China Rich Girlfriend. So Crazy Rich Asians is about this guy named Nicholas Young who has come from a very affluent background. His family is very wealthy, and a woman who is Rachel Chu, and she does not come from a very wealthy background. She actually comes from a humble background, but they are in a relationship and they plan to go to Singapore for the summer break to meet Nick's family and to also attend his best friend's wedding. However, Rachel does not really know that Nick is very wealthy. She does not understand that part of his life at all because he's never really talked about it. And Nick's family prefers Nick to be with someone who is also of a wealthy background, so Rachel came to a very interesting surprise when she visited and realized that his family did not like her. They did not welcome her, especially his mom. She was very rude, and a lot of the people he grew up with were really rude to her. So some people were nice to her though, his best friend or his cousin and some of his other friends. They were nice to her, but overall the experience wasn't exactly the best for Rachel. And in China Rich Girlfriend, Rachel and Nick get married, but Nick's mother kind of makes it complicated when she finds Rachel's father. They go and visit him and she learns a lot about him, and there are a lot of good things and a lot of bad things that she didn't know about, but that entire journey was very interesting to read about. So my fifth recommendation is I Love You So Mochi by Sarah Kuhn, and this is about a Japanese girl named Kimi, and she has a passion for fashion. But her mom doesn't like that very much, so they get into a big fight. So her grandparents send her a letter inviting her to spend her spring break in Japan. While she's in Japan, she discovers more about herself, and she discovers inspiration for her fashion designs, and she also discovers more about her family, like her grandparents and her mom even. So while she's there, she meets this boy named Akira, and he runs a mochi stand with his father, and he wants to be a doctor. And it's just like really cute when they meet and they just like hang out and they go sightseeing together. And they help each other realize exactly what they want, and they inspire each other to go for it. I think I read this book like my freshman year, so like last year, 2 years ago. I read it in 2019 and I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it to literally like everybody. I'm so excited to talk about this one. So I just finished reading this one like earlier this week, like a couple of days ago. It's called Frankly in Love by David Yoon. I love this book so much. I'm so excited to start talking about it. So this book is about a Korean American boy named Frank Lee. So Frank Lee is super smart, and his parents moved from Korea to America to start a life, and they only want the best for Frank. So basically he falls for this girl named Britt Means, and like she's also super smart. She's in this AP Cat class, and all things are like fun and sweet and easygoing, but the only problem is Britt is white. You know, this normally wouldn't be an issue. Like, it's not a problem. Like, oh, he likes her, she likes him. Like, it's cool. Like, it's cool. You know, like, it should be fine, right? That's not true, because Frank's parents do not approve of interracial relationships, and his sister Hannah actually married a black guy, and she basically got disowned. Like, they did not talk to her for like years, and she hasn't come to visit, and it's kind of sad. So Frank decides to hide Britt, and he does this by creating a fake dating scheme with one of his childhood friends, Joy Song. By doing this, he can tell his parents like, oh, I'm gonna go out with Joy, or like, I'm gonna go and hang out with Joy. But while his parents think he's hanging out with Joy, he's actually hanging out with Britt, and she's hanging out with her boyfriend Woo, who is Chinese, so she's also hiding him from her parents because she's Korean, and her parents are like Frank's parents. They don't want their children dating anyone who's not Korean. It's kind of ridiculous, but no, it's not kind of ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Like, that's messed up. So the whole like dating scheme works out because Joy is approved by the parentals because she is also of Korean descent. So Britt does not really know about this whole entire dating scheme that's going on. So when she found out, she was not happy at all. I felt really bad for her. So apart from all of that, I think this book is really good because it represents that it's not easy to know who you are and what culture you belong to. So yes, Frank is Korean, but he doesn't speak Korean. He doesn't really understand it either. So when his parents speak it, he's like kind of just lost because he doesn't speak it, like he doesn't understand it, but he's Korean. So normally you would think like, oh, like if you know your ethnicity, if you know a language you speak, you should be able to speak that language, right? That's not always true. Even though that would be nice, that's not always true. So Frank kind of struggles with his identity because yes, he's Korean, but he doesn't feel like he completely fits in with Korean people. He's also American, but he doesn't always feel like he's American enough, you know? Because sometimes he feels like he's not white enough, or like just he doesn't have the same privileges as, I guess, white American, but he's also American. So like he has to find this balance between being Korean and being American. So when I first read it, it really intrigued me because yes, I am African American, but I don't know my ethnicity, and he is Korean. He knows his ethnicity, but he still can't really fully identify with it. It's like the main difference between me being African American and Frank being Korean American and just other Korean Americans like in general is that I don't know exactly where my ancestors come from, but he does, they do. And I just thought it was really interesting that someone can know where their ancestors are from. They can know what language they can speak. They know they have a place to visit like during their breaks. They can visit their parents, their grandparents of like their native land, but they can still feel lost. And I feel like most people don't recognize that. So I feel like the way that David Yoon like represented this in his book was very well done. And it really shows that no matter who you are or like where you're from, there's always some self-discovery to be made. So I recommend this book to anyone who is struggling with their identity, whether they are African American, Asian American, European American, like just anything with that hyphen. And I also recommend this book to anyone who has experienced interracial relationships. Alrighty, so we're going on to my next stack, and that last stack I did was books that I have read. Oh, I'm not even looking at the camera. Books that I have read. This is the stack of books that I have not read yet, but I plan to. So let's begin. So So the first book on my to-read list is Pachinko by Lin Lee, and it's set in the 1900s, and it's about this girl named Sandhya, who is the daughter of a fisherman, and she falls in love with a wealthy man who lives near her home in Korea. So they fall in love, but then she discovers her pregnancy, and then she runs off with the minister who is on his way to Japan. So this is basically about how she basically like abandoned her home, and she leaves her home and she rejects her son's powerful father, and yeah, that's what happens with that. I saw this book in my school's library and I was like, oh, okay, I see. I really want to read it. Like, so many books that I just have and just haven't read, and I keep going to the store and just keep buying books, but my to-read list just keeps getting stacked up, but it's fine. So the next book on my to-read list is Heiress, apparently, and it's by Diana Ma. So it's about this girl named Gemma Huang, and she's an actress who her mother has basically banned from setting foot in China. Like, not really banned, but she's strongly encouraging her to never go to China. So she lands a lead role that requires her to travel to China. So this gives her the chance to actually, you know, learn about like why her mom didn't want her coming there in the first place. So yeah, once she's there, she basically learns that she is part of a royal family, or just a family who was high on the social scale. I don't remember which one it was. Probably both. So yeah, that's an interesting discovery on her part. So the next book I have is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon, and the protagonist is an Indian girl who, her name is Dimple, and she just graduated high school. She got into Stanford, and she has her head on very straight. She's very logical, and her parents sent her away to, or they plan on sending her away to this summer program for web developers, where they have hopes of her finding her ideal Indian husband. Little did Dimple know that while she's going to be there, she's going to meet this guy named Rishi, who is also going to be attending the program. So Rishi is the opposite of Dimple. He's like this hopeless romantic, and he actually like believes in love and believes in tradition and believes in finding a wife. So these two personalities kind of like, it'll be interesting once they meet. It kind of reminds me of The Sun Is Also a Star. It reminds me of The Sun Is Also a Star, where Natasha was very like logical and didn't believe in love, but Daniel was also a hopeless romantic, and he believed in destiny and love at first sight and all of that. I don't know if I already said this, but I started reading this not too long ago, like a couple of days ago, after I finished reading Frankly in Love, and I'm only on page 4, so So my second to last recommendation is Fake It Till You Break It by Jenn Nguyen, and it's about these two characters named Mia and Jake, and they've known each other their whole lives, their whole childhoods. They basically go through everything together, even dentist appointments, but they don't really like each other. Like, at all. So Mia's mom does not really allow her to easily date other boys, but she approves of Jake, I guess because she thinks they're like perfect for each other. So then they just decided to fake date, similar to Joy and Frey, and then they decide to stage the biggest breakup ever. So this seems like all good and fun, right? Like a nice, good plan. They don't like each other, they're going to fake a breakup. It's all good until they actually fall for each other. Then things get complicated. So I'm starting to believe that fake dating leads to real dating. Prove me wrong. So my last and final book recommendation for today is Parachutes by Kelly Yang. So the term parachutes in this book refers to the teenagers who are dropped off in the US to study while their rich parents decide to stay back in Asia. So in this particular book, Claire Yang was sent to California from Shanghai to study. And she stays with the host family, of course, because like her parents are like still in Asia. Her host sister Danny is not pleased that her mother is letting Claire stay with them. So Danny has dreams to go to Yale, and she's willing to put in all of the work that she needs to get in, even if she has to compete against those who are just wealthy and like buying their way. And I guess during the whole process, Claire and Danny are trying to avoid each other as much as they could while they're under the same roof. So I'm assuming they're gonna become friends later, but I don't know. Time will tell. We shall see. So that is my list of book recommendations that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully you guys have expanded your perspectives on the representation of Asian protagonists in literature. And I'll also leave the Amazon links to all of the books that I mentioned in this video below in case, you know, something caught your attention and you want to buy it. So like I said in my last video, do not wait. You do not have to wait until next May to start reading books by Asian authors and reading Asian stories, because they are Asian all year round, not just for the duration of May. Because just like any other POC or any group of people, Asian stories deserve the love and representation just like everyone else. So yeah, thank you guys again for watching this video, and I hope you guys enjoy your lives. So yeah, bye!
But boy, you still got my heart beating